Hello, everyone. Welcome to the panel Rise of Drones. Drones are the blue eyed sector of deep tech now, and with policy changes have come multiple opportunities as well. From vaccine delivery to monitoring to defense warfare tech, drones are everywhere. And with recent changes and with recent developments, the interest in applications is trickling down to mainstream. But what does that mean for the business? And what is the impact that will have on the sector? To talk about this and much more, we have with us Mr. Mughilan Swamy, who's CEO of Skylark Drones, and Mr. Swapnik Jakkampudi, who is the co-founder of Skye Mobility. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Swapnik, talk to us about the innovations that are happening in the sector, be it in terms of vaccine delivery trials or in terms of defense warfare tech. What do you have to say about those?
Yeah, so I'll start off with the vaccine, like you said. So if you see currently, most of the vaccine right now that's happening in traditional mode, like, through the road network or local logistics network that, either you have a helper in a hospital trying to transporting it and doing that. But right now, what we have done, for example, in the medicine from the Skye program trials that have been going on for the state of Telangana, we're able to use drones themselves, right? Not only are we cutting short the time and the distance that we are doing the delivery, we were able to monitor the vaccine temperature all throughout in real time. We're able to track it, give them the tracking providence, to make sure the temperature is always maintained, because most of the vaccines or some of them are temperature sensitive, and you need the data to be tracked, so that make sure there's no the vaccines are still proper, right? There's no chain has broken or potency or the effectiveness of vaccine. So that way we've been able to use drones. So for example, in one of the flight paths that we took with delivering from the community healthcare center to another primary healthcare center, it was taking us around 45 to 50 minutes by road. And even once we were doing it by drone, it was taking us 25 minutes approximately, right? So and you're cutting down almost 20 minutes time, and you're able to monitor the temperature themselves accordingly. So it's a very big difference. And then it's always on demand too, if you really need emergency vaccines or over there. And the use case was not just vaccines for them, it was blood, any kind of long tail medicines, or if you have any antivenom. So if you're smaller in a small village where there's a very small primary healthcare center with one room, they don't have cold chain facilities. The community healthcare center, which was a base when we we're doing the trials, had all the cold chain facilities or the diagnostics lab right available with them, right? So you have to always transport the samples collected from the patients in the primary healthcare centers back to the community healthcare center, or any vaccines or medicines that need to be done, or blood or antivenom medicines that need to be used. So they all could have been done at a short moments of notice, right? So that this is where it helps, in just in case if there is any road blockage for any reason, we were able to overcome that. So these are ways that you're able to use existing drone technologies, using innovation and emerging tech to solve the real world problems. And when it comes to defense, from perspective of what we do at Skye, you can obviously, if there are any casualties, or if there's anything casualties for the soldiers, and you need medicines or any help that needs to be sent to them quickly, you can use drones. Or and if there is any need for food supplies, if they're stuck in an area, or if they need water or any ammunitions that are there, drones can be used in that sector. So that way, because all of them are autonomous missions, even the flight missions that we did in Telangana, most of them were autonomous, right? The takeoff and the landing, everything was autonomous. So the pilot was there in case to take over if there are any contingencies that got triggered, and he needs to take over. For right now, because it's still relatively new, the pilots were always monitoring the flight plan and all that. But in the future, I think most of these missions, all of them will be autonomous. So it's a very big multiplier. So one pilot can do multiple missions, track different drones, right? So you need a small team overall. So that way you're able to do a lot more with less capital human resources that we need. So this is where I think, from our perspective of Skye, where we are focused on drone delivery, this innovation, emerging tech can make a difference in these two sectors.
Thank you, Swapnik. Thank you for that. So Mugilan will come to you now. I want to hear about what you think are the innovations that are defining the sector right now.
No, I think, I mean, there are drones as a sector. I mean, have been there for about 20-30 years now. I think commercialization has started for drone applications very recently, right? And I think right now, like Swapnik had mentioned, there's of course logistics and other defense areas where we talk about obvious use cases of drones. There's another interesting use case for most people who doesn't come to their imagination is about the entire concept around aerial intelligence, right? So what happens if we have drones flying over work sites, right? What are the things that enterprises, normal enterprises, construction industries, mining industries, road industries, right? Utilities even, right? Like what can they use drones for, right? So there's a lot of innovation which is happening here at Skylark. At Skylark, we are focused on delivering these aerial intelligence to these work sites. Right. We are I mean, every single time we talk to customers, it usually surprises on how much how much inefficiencies that we can cover, right? With using drones. I'm just gonna pick about a couple of them for the time. So first one is on in especially in the mining sector, where we talk about how quickly we can estimate how much volumes that each mine is basically producing, right? How much ore is being shipped out, right, on a day basis. That's something which is which is completely automated using a drone, right? Number two is closer to home, about all these cell phone towers and utility towers which are there in cities and in villages and so on. Today they're all manually inspected, which means to say that somebody climbs on top of each of these towers and actually inspects them. And there are a lot of people dying because of this reason, right? Because of accidents. So that can completely be stopped if you start flying drones, right? Imagine the future, right? The near future, there will be like, say, all the workers today who are climbing these towers, tomorrow they're all going to be drone pilots. They're going to go to each tower and they're going to press a button and the drone will fly and it will do the inspection and it will come back, right? Every surveyor, right, who's coming with this, total station, whatever this equipment in civil construction, we go to a road and they're constructing, they're going to have these binoculars. All those things are going to get completely replaced, and those guys are going to start flying drones, right? They're going to come with their bag, they're just going to fly the drone, they're going to finish it, and they're going to keep going, right? So things which used to take days, months, years to do is going to be done in hours and minutes, right? So that is the level of transformation that we are going to see in these sectors, right?
Sure. So Mugilan, let's stay with you and let's ask you the next question in that case. With so much opportunities, Swapnik also mentioned some, and you also stated some interesting use cases. And COVID acted as a good catalyst for the acceleration of these applications coming into focus as well. What has been the impact on the sector in terms of investor interest or in terms of talent coming in for you or new jobs being created? Talk to us a little bit about that.
I think the code has been, has been positive, because most of the times people now get to realize how easy remote work actually is, right? So, for example, when it is very apparent in software industries that we can now work remotely, right? You can sit here and work remotely. But if somebody is actually constructing in a site, right, or mining, right, doing these activities, it's impossible using travel restrictions and so on and so forth to actually go and monitor these sites on a regular basis, right? Now we have a drone on a regular basis. You can start flying the drone in these work sites, right? And these insights can come to you sitting remotely. So how do you do smart work sites, right? How do you do Industry 4.0, right? So that's something which COVID has shortened the time, I would say, in terms of adoption of this technology, right? Having said that, there is still a lot of work to be done, right from the policy side, right from the technology readiness, right from more education with respect to the masses and the people out there, right, to understand what this technology kind of helps them with, right? So I would say the drones are like like cars in 1900, right? People used to go in horse carriages before, right? And it took them 10 years to realize cars are actually better, and people started building roads not for horses but for cars, right? So that amount of transformation in civilization is going to happen this decade, right? And then we will see a lot of new devices and new technology actually coming for this transformation per se.
Sure. Thank you, Mughilan. Swapnik, I want to hear from you about the investor interest coming in with new applications and innovation.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely. I think with the COVID and it helps that our own honorable Prime Minister is taking a personal interest in the sector and pushing the new rules and trying to get this industry up and started and give it a big boost, right? So that way, definitely we're seeing a lot of interest, not only from investors, also prospective clients that are coming and talking to us. Prospective clients themselves are interested in being strategic investors with us, right? So we are not only seeing interest from angel investors who are very excited and bullish. It's coming from institutional investors who in some cases they've reached out to us themselves, to try to figure out, okay, what are we doing, who are we, how to do it. And we have got interest from outside of India also. We have got from Southeast Asia. One of the some of the institutes over there, they just I was talking to the other day on an interview, and they were saying that, okay, we have people who are interested in drone space, and they might be they'll be watching what you guys are doing and then reading to what is the thing. And we actually have interest from a fund in Japan too. Recently we were in Dubai, and the amount of support and awareness, curiosity that we got was a lot. So which is very humbling to see. And it's a good exciting space to be in, because there's a lot of work to do, and if people are there to support you, overall ecosystem is very supportive and encouraging, from all different stakeholders, right from the government to private players who are the clients who are there, to every people who are investors from different stages, different type of investors. All of them are showing their interest. So which is good. I think is a good recipe to have for the industry to grow overall, right? So if we are growing as Skye, right, that means the industry in general is growing. So which is very good news.
Yes. So in keeping with the growth, of course, we will then address the technologies that come into play in terms of ICT tech, or with 5G coming in and AI coming in. There's also involvement of miniaturization of electronics. What is more useful to you? What do you see taking strides, or the technologies that will help you grow much more in the future?
Yeah, so I'll start off with from my perspective, and then overall in general, right? Yeah, so if you see, yes, AI can make a very big difference to what we do also, right? So the electronics also make a difference. For example, AI that makes more relevance and sense for us is that if you see most of our deliveries that are done, they're on beyond visual line of sight, right? So they're like 10, 15, 20 kilometers away, when there's no visual line of sight for the pilot to see if there's any obstacle that comes in the way. So it's always good to have a camera which is able to detect an object and track its trajectory and then plan it out, what it needs to do. We have some systems in place, but there's always room to make it more robust, right? So AI will help a lot in that. So we've got multiple different objects. How does it dynamically, avoid all of that? So AI can be a major player in the drone delivery space for us. And if you see, communication is going to be a very big aspect for us when doing delivery. For example, if you're doing somewhere in the Northeast India where it's very hilly terrain, right? So you just having normal methods of communication with the drone might not help all the time, it might be consistent. So you will have to adopt 5G, you might have to adopt satellite communication, a different type of communication where there's no interruption. If you're going over telecom towers or high tension wires, makes difference. So you need technology there that will, to industrialize the solution overall, so that it can be leveraged. So in talking about aerial intelligence, what Mughilan was saying, right? Agriculture is one area we are seeing that a lot of interest coming to us, even though we're not in the space of that, but a lot of people are asking aerial intelligence, what AI can help in that, crop health monitoring, or if there is any other way of use case that can help a lot, right? Pesticide spraying. It can make a very major difference if they're very autonomous and intelligent themselves. Right now, the drones, they can make a big difference to the society as general. And we Indians, in India itself, right now, our economy depends a lot on agriculture, right? So it can make a very, if you see, if agriculture is where if drones are able to leverage whatever existing technology and new technology, it can make a very big difference to us in India.
In keeping with this, what are some of the midterm and long-term changes you see in the sector coming up? And this could be not just in terms of innovation, but everything else, maybe policy or investor interest, or in terms of new technologies acting as a supporting infrastructure.
I think, see, drones are here to stay, right? For the longest of times, I think the last 5 years to 10 years, the last decade has proven that drones are going to stay, right? Most technologies sometimes, they call emerging tech and sometimes don't emerge at all, right? And very unfortunate, some of these technologies die out after their initial traction, right? But one thing that to note about drones is that drones are going to stay. They're not going to go away from our lives. Right. So what that means is basically everybody is going to start, living their life around drones, like how we are today living our lives around, say, cars, mobile phones, right, cameras, television, laptops. So we live our lives around these devices, right? And what in the next decade we will start living our lives around drones also. Right, it can be around logistics, it can be around intelligence, it can be around multiple things, right? So whatever you can imagine that supporting technologies are going to have, right, is definitely going to start evolving to make this a reality, right? So it can be policy, it can be software, it can be as simple as putting, a drone pad on top of somebody's terrace, or a drone lands, right? It can be anything, right? But all of these things are going to happen in the due course of time. It can happen in 5 years, it can happen in 10 years, it can happen in 20 years, right? It bases the speed, right? But all of them will happen.
Sure.
Right?
Sure, thank you for that answer. Swapnik, yes, Mughilan mentioned about the changes that are going to come in owing to the current circumstances, and also the applications that are going to come in the future. What are the challenges that the sector is facing currently?
The challenge is obviously one of the main hurdles was regulatory, but that got removed quite a bit. The second one is that we had, we're looking for components locally, right? So most of the time we're importing most of the components that we need. But the positive aspect is at least the PLI scheme that's come in to encourage local manufacturing, which gives us more confidence in the supply chain to procure parts or components that we need for our own operations or things. So hopefully the domestic demand that we are seeing for drones in general, and also the encouragement for manufacturing, should help in getting that sector up to need, because we're not manufacturers. We depend on vendors to help us out in that aspect. So that is one major thing. I think it will help in battery technology if we can have more supply that is available in India for us to do for drones, right? So that helps. So the cost of the components can come down. So I think if you're able to bring the cost and supply to be there consistently, cost to come down and the supply of components to be there always, so that it's reliable, instead of relying on the world supply chain to help us. If you're able to do it locally, it helps us a lot. And I think otherwise that communication, what I mentioned, have consistent communication, because most of our work, at least for us, is going to be beyond visual line of sight, sometimes like 25-30 kilometers. So communication components that are there, communication systems on the drone, if they're very reliable for us, that makes a very big difference. We have it now, but hopefully it becomes more cost effective for us also soon. So that will help us do it. And I think the technology is there most of the time, we have, and everything is almost there. We just have to put it together, and adoption is what we are at the stage where I think it'll take time, like I said, maybe next 5 years or 2 years or 1 year. But I think we just need to, we want to see that adoption going through. I think we're ready for that overall.
Sure. What about scalability of the business model?
Yeah, so we see it may make it's easily doable for us. We'll be doing it in different phases. Like right now, the first phase where we see we won't be doing end-to-end delivery, right? Even last mile. We see all the players that we're working with, it's going to be hub to spoke models. But eventually in the future, where we are able to map out different areas and the technology is able to evolve to help us, we will get to this the last stage of end-to-end last mile delivery also. But right now, whoever clients we're talking, all the use cases that we are seeing, just the hub to spoke model itself is going to make a big impact in their respective industries. So we're very excited about that. And then once we have the local manufacturing and outside also, up to the speed what the industry in general needs, I think we should be easily able to scale it up, because the technology, like I said, it's almost everything is almost here. We just have to now go ahead and work on scaling it and implementing it.
Sure. Thank you, Swapnik. So let's move to the policy side of things. There was a recent big change in the policy, and that helped a lot of that cleared a way for a lot of innovation to come in terms of trials and delivery trials for vaccines. The regulatory instability has affected the sector for some time, but where do you think are the gaps, and what more needs to be fixed for much more innovation and investor interest to trickle down to the sector?
I think overall everything is very positive. There are a couple of areas where maybe UTM sector is what we'll probably need to still work on. So what you see until the government is receptive to us, and our hope is that they're very active in working in trying to solve the issues that we will face in the future, right? So if you ask me, all of us, all the players, including like us or Skylark, Skye or Skylark or other players in different sectors, we're all implementing it for the first time, right? So what does it mean for all of us to work together in a very, like, what are the challenges that we will see? So I think most of it will be future, how we are able to interact with the government and work with them. And I think UTM will be a very big player a very big aspect to scaling going forward. That can make a very big difference to us or any of the use cases Skylark is in also, right? So that will be the area where I think we will have to actively work with the government and fix any kind of gaps that we have not seen or the government has not seen. So that is where I think we should probably be focusing on, and how are we able to adapt quickly and adjust to the problems in the real time. So if we can't wait for another 3 years or 4 years later, like, oh, your issue was that from the year one, right? So if you're able to do that from every month to month, have some feedback and make those changes, it will be very big, very useful for us, industry in general.
Sure. Thank you, Swapnik. Thank you for that answer. Mughilan, what are your views on the same?
A couple of things, right? One is, of course, that's one what Swapnik said afterwards, but one is, of course, the entire hardware component, right? The hardware piece. I think import of components, import of drones, import of multiple components as well as drones and multiple other things, right? I think, and certification. The entire piece around what drone is supposed to fly, what are the components you can import, right? The entire thing is still a work in progress, right? In terms of ease of just getting a thing done, right? I think most of the other countries, we look check regulations everywhere else in the world, right? Nobody certifies a drone, right? India is the first country which has actually come up with saying, okay, we want certification for drone, for every drone, for that matter, right? Which is a great step forward compared to where we were at, right? But I think there's still a lot can be done, right, in terms of just removing some of these, certifications. Even if it's a certification, how quickly can we get it done? So there's a lot more people who are interested, to make drones, because drones are not so. So what people fail to understand is the fact that, unfortunately, is the fact that drones are not going to be like, sorry. So it's not going to be like, it's not definitely not going to be like a one-off thing, right? Not like one gadget, right? They're going to come in so many varieties of shapes and forms, right? For every application, there's going to be a specialized drone. We're talking about unmanned aerial mobility itself, right? So we're talking about different types and varieties of drones, right? And the challenge really becomes you have to innovate fast for all of these, things, right? So you need to have a faster and easier way of certification and import of components and import of drones. Everything, right? Everything around hardware needs to be much more simplified. We have come a long way. Definitely come a long way compared to the last time, but I think that piece can be even further more simplified. Coming to the software side of things, specifically, I think today Digital Skye is, a great portal. I mean, well thought through, at least digital and not paper-based and not anything. But I do think that, we have moved from paper-based to, an income tax kind of a website where we apply, right? And we basically see clearances, etc., right? But I think the next level of software innovation, especially in the UTM thing and all that, will come if we have like an UPI movement in the drone space, where there can be open APIs, where people can come and build software, right, on top of Digital Skye, right? And not make it like an income tax website where only the government can consume data, right? And nobody else can potentially build anything on top, right? And I think that is going to change a lot in specific to the software side of things, right? With respect to UTM, with respect to, various applicants, right? It can be even a simple flight radar. I mean, flight radar is an app where you can open today, right? Download the free app. You can open today and find out where all the aircrafts are flying in the world, right? So in real time, literally, right? And that's something we want to have even in drones, right? We want to see all the drones in India which are flying, in the world which are flying, right? There's no harm in knowing, what drones are there, right? And no harm in saying that, above my house there should not be any drone flying, right? Especially because my private property, right? So those kind of, usages and things that is, it can't be possible with a closed, Digital Skye web platform, but an open innovation platform, like somewhat what UPI had done for fintech, right? Where they had, had a simple, protocol saying that, if you're on UPI, everybody can participate. The banks can participate, the fintech companies can participate, the user can participate, right? So that is something which is yet to be, got in terms of drone tech. I think we have to form a committee with a long way to go. But I think those are the, future things where, you can, from a policy gap standpoint, which can be worked upon.
Sure. Thank you, Mughilan, for that. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you for taking time out and joining us on this panel. Stay tuned for more.
Thank you. Thanks, Vaishnavi.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mughilan.